Welcome to Theater Talk. I'm Ed Schoaps. Co-host Ann McBride and I are here the first and third Fridays of every month to tell you all about what's happening in the Mid-Willamette Valley theater world. Hi, Ann.
Hi, Ed, and welcome, theater lovers. Joining us first on this episode of KMUZ Theater Talk are director Susan Schoaps and actors Shay, Hasse, and Ken Hermens to tell us all about The Play That Goes Wrong, a crazy comedy that runs November 17th through December 9th at the Pentacle Theatre.
And in our second interview, we'll hear from Corban University's Tamara McGinnis, who's directing You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Rounding out today's program is our conversation with director Jeb Burris and actors Maddie, Blanchard, and Jacob Fritts from Western Oregon University's production of one of Shakespeare's best, Much Ado About Nothing.
But first, let's check out our KMUZ Theater Talk calendar to see what else is on the boards. And
Albany Civic Theater at albanycivic.org is doing She Kills Monsters, Ki Nguyen's surprisingly sweet tale of friendship, loss, and acceptance told through the lens of Dungeons and Dragons. It plays through November 4th, and it's directed by Josh Anderson. Next up at Albany Civic Theater is The Wonderful Tale of Peter and the Starcatcher. It plays December 1st through 16th, and they will join us on our next Theater Talk program to tell us all about it.
Brush Creek Playhouse at brushcreekplayhouse.com is closing their 2023 season, December 1st through 17th, with Ebenezer, A Christmas Carol. It's an original adaptation of the Charles Dickens classic by Emily and Michael Wood, and it's directed by Norm Gouveia.
The Elsinore Theater at elsinoretheater.com. For information about local events and touring shows on stage at the Elsinore, go to elsinoretheater.com or their Facebook page.
Enlightened Theatrics is at enlightenedtheatrics.org. And next up for Enlightened is James and the Giant Peach. It runs December 10th through 17th at the Grand Theater in downtown Salem, and the show is directed by Stephen Munshaw with vocal director Kent Wilson and choreographer Christopher Dean. Go to the enlightenedtheatrics.org website and Enlightened's Facebook page for more info. And check out our next edition of KMUZ Theater Talk for an interview about the show.
Gallery Theater at gallerytheater.org. The Harry Potter-inspired Puffs, or 7 increasingly eventful years at a certain school of magic and magic, by playwright Matt Cox and directed by Garrett Gibbs, plays through November 5th at Gallery. And you can get your tickets now at gallerytheater.org. And Anne of Green Gables opens November 24th and runs through December 17th at the Gallery Theater.
Kaiser Homegrown Theater at kaiserhomegrowntheater.org will kick off its 2024 season starting February 9th through 25th with Boeing. This is a farce about an American living in Paris who is engaged to 3 different flight attendants on different airlines. Bernard has their schedule set so only one is with him at a time until it all goes wrong. Well, is it wheels up or a belly landing for poor Bernard? Let's see. Auditions for the rest of Kaiser Homegrown's 2024 season will happen in early December, and we'll have audition dates and season information for you as they are announced.
The Majestic Theater, that's at majestic.org and on Facebook. Candor and Ebb's hit musical Cabaret is on stage November 4th through 19th at the Majestic Theater in downtown Corvallis. Get tickets at majestic.org.
Pentacle Theater is at pentacletheater.org, and next up at Pentacle is the crazy comedic mayhem of The Play That Goes Wrong, and it's on stage November 17th through December 9th. We'll get the inside scoop from director Susan Schoaps and cast members Ken Hermens and Shay Hasse coming up later in today's program. And don't forget the Joe Dodge's acting workshop for actors 18 and older is at Pentacle Theater's downtown rehearsal studio in Salem. To sign up, go to tickets.pentacletheater.org.
The Salem Playhouse at thesalemplayhouse.com. They offer acting classes for both kids and adults at Kaiser Homegrown Theater and adult classes at Chemeketa Community College. To sign up, go to thesalemplayhouse.com and click on the Classes tab.
Corban University at corban.edu/theater-arts. Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, will play November 9th through 19th at Corban. It's directed by Tamara McGinnis. See the Corban Theater Facebook page and website for show and ticket information. And we'll have an interview with Tamara later in today's Theater Talk program.
Western Oregon University at wou.edu/theater. Western's academic season of shows starts with one of Shakespeare's best, Much Ado About Nothing, November 9th through 18th. Stay with us for our interview with director Jeb Burris and two of the actors from the production.
Willamette University is at wutheater.com, and Willamette's 2023-24 season is off to a really strong start with the world premiere of In the Deep, a new musical with book and lyrics by E.M. Lewis and music by Clarence Roscoe McDonald. That show is on stage now through November 12th. Ellen and Roscoe joined us last time on KMUZ Theater Talk, and you can catch that interview wherever you listen to podcasts.
McKay High School on Facebook at McKay Thespians. McKay Thespians are partnering with the Portland Playhouse Fall Festival of Shakespeare, and they are performing Romeo and Juliet November 9th through 11th and November 18th at McKay. They will also stage Romeo and Juliet at the Winningstead Theater in Portland, all under guest director Cecily Ash.
McNary High School is on Facebook at Ken Collins Theater. Mamma Mia, the musical, will be on stage at the Ken Collins Theater January 25th through 27th and February 1st through 3rd.
North Salem High School on Facebook at NSHS Theater. The teen edition of Chicago opens November 3rd, directed by Alyssa Bond. That's followed by a holiday show December 1st through 3rd called Junie B. in Jingle Bells Batman Smells, based on the best-selling book series by Barbara Park. Hilarious.
South Salem High School on Facebook at Saxon Drama. The Sound of Music opens November 30th and plays through December 3rd in the Rose Theater at South Salem High. Drama teacher Juliana Gibbons will join us on our next edition of KMUZ Theater Talk with all the details. Saxon Drama's advanced theater class is doing The Bard in December as an outreach and educational piece for South Salem High School's feeder schools.
Sprague High School is doing Midsummer/Jersey by Ken Ludwig, and that's the hilarious high-octane retelling of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, set in a seaside boardwalk in modern-day New Jersey. It plays November 16th through 18th at Sprague.
Stayton High School is new to us here on Theater Talk, and they're on Facebook at Stayton High School Theater. They're doing the mystery comedy Clue, November 16th through 19th. So check it out. Go to their Facebook page for more information.
West Salem High School on Facebook at West Salem Drama Department. The Lightning Thief is on stage at West Salem High School November 8th through 17th. It's a musical about a 12-year-old boy who discovers that he is a demigod. He goes on a quest to find Zeus's missing lightning bolt to prevent a war between the Greek gods. And that wraps up this week's Theater Talk calendar.
Coming up next, we'll talk with director Susan Schoaps and actors from The Play That Goes Wrong coming to the Pentacle Theatre stage. We'll be right back with more KMUZ Theater Talk. Stay with us.
We're talking with Susan Schoaps, director of The Play That Goes Wrong, opening November 17th at the Pentacle Theatre, and she's brought two actors with her, Shay Hasse and Ken Hermens. Hi, welcome to Theater Talk.
Hi, thanks for having us on.
I just want to give a brief disclosure at the top of this interview. Susan is my bride, and she has enlisted me as a production assistant. So I just want to let everybody know that I have a connection here.
Susan, what attracted you to this particular play other than we've all seen everything go wrong backstage?
Well, I think I came across a clip on Facebook or something that led me to YouTube of a small brief clip of the show, which I thought was hysterical, which led me to the Goes Wrong show, which is put on by the same people who wrote this play. They actually first performed it in London, and then it ended up on Broadway, and it's just so funny. It's one of those slapstick comedies that you can't help but laugh even when you're just reading it, and then when it's on stage it's even funnier.
You've described this several times as Noises Off on steroids, and you directed Noises Off, and you've been in
Yes.
Noises Off. What makes
Yes.
you call this show Noises Off on steroids?
The set is an important part of Noises Off in that it rotates. This set does far more than that. The set is really a character unto itself.
Well, that sounds complicated.
Yes, there's a lot of moving parts.
And some of the moving parts are the actors. Can you talk to that?
The show requires actors not only who are good actors, but who can also act like not so good actors, and also can handle the very demanding physical comedy that is required of this show. My poor cast is already black and blue just from the rehearsal process, so bless them.
Can you talk about the character of the Drama Society's director, Robert Barnett?
Yes, Robert is playing Chris, who is president of the Cornley Drama Society and the director of this show, and has cast himself in the lead. So if you're an actor, you know exactly what kind of person he is.
What actually happens in the play?
It's a show within a show, much like Noises Off is, in that the Cornley Drama Society has gotten together and they're producing a British murder mystery, one of those sort of British manor locked door. They're trapped in by a snowstorm, and murders begin to happen. And so that is what these people are trying to perform. And then various things begin to go wrong and snowball to the point that everything has gone wrong.
Shay, you play the femme fatale in this show, and the actor who's portraying this part also, that's got to be a challenge just in and of itself, playing two different characters. Or is she typecast? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, that's a great question. And, I think it ties back to what Susan was talking about earlier for me, especially talking about physical comedy. There is the characters themselves, the actors, the challenge of having that, how do I play a bad actor, but not maybe fall into bad acting myself? There's that line there. And there's the physical comedy. When you're looking at a stereotypical femme fatale, a stereotypical ingenue, a stereotypical young woman-esque in a show rarely gets those absolutely hilarious physical slapstick comical moments. And there are some in this show that are just so juicy. Of course, cannot give away what the details are. You'll have to come see it. But I remember I saw this show tour in 2019. And one of the earliest moments, that's one of my favorites, that I won't say exactly what it is, but it is a very obvious physical comedy moment that is not very common for me to get the chance to play. And I remember seeing that on stage and laughing so hard. I think I was crying the first time I saw it, and remembering, man, I am desperate to play that part. But no theater would be crazy enough to take on this show with all of the technical staging and set and complications. So definitely glad that Pinnacle was down to try this one, because there is a lot here that is very not stereotypical for an actor to get. And to your question about, the femme fatale and stereotyping, I think what's so fun is that within the role within a role, like I've got Sandra is playing Florence, and finding her personality that, you know, that leaks into what she does for Florence. I like to think there's a little bit of Shay in every single role I play. And that challenge is, what is the little bit of Sandra that leaks into Florence? And kind of finding those little moments where the audience can see the actor behind the role that they're playing. It's been a very fun, unique experience to have that. And I'm very grateful that they took this show on. It's got more physical comedy than I think I've ever done in a show. That's why we're all sweating and gasping by the end. It's a good workout.
And Ken, you and I go back a few years. You're one of the most experienced, talented actors at Pentacle Theatre. You've appeared in numerous shows. How do you see this show, having been through some of those gone wrong moments throughout your career? There are things that you've seen that have gone wrong on stage. Is that why you're in this show, or is there some other thing that's driving you for it?
Thanks for the question, Ed. Things have certainly gone wrong many times in productions that I've been in, not only at Pinnacle, but at pretty much at any level. I mean, you never know what to expect with live theater, which is why I think I'm drawn to doing live theater, why so many actors prefer probably to do live theater to doing something that's filmed, because there's always that element of surprise and anything can happen at any moment. You have to be ready for that. I was particularly drawn to this show because I'd seen it in actually when it was on Broadway, New York, several years ago. And I had a similar reaction to it, I think, as Shay did, which was, I love this show. I adore it. I wanted desperately to do it. Like Susan, I think I even thought about, this is something I would love to direct. And I dismissed it as a possibility because it is so technically difficult. And I thought no one ever is going to want to try to take this on in terms of what the set has to do particularly. But I'm thrilled that people have stepped up to the plate and have been brave enough to put it on the season. And I'm very excited about anticipating doing it in front of an audience.
Your character, Dennis, who plays Perkins the butler, is one of the most lovable characters that I think I've ever seen on a stage. What's the challenge of playing a character who is obviously challenged by being an actor in such a lovable way?
I think that's what drew me particularly, it draws me particularly to this character who's loads of fun to play, is because he is so sincere and so dedicated to wanting everything to go right that I think it probably hits him maybe harder than it does some of the other characters in the play when things do go wrong. And he's not as adept at covering or hiding things as other people who are a part of the cast might be. So the fun part of Dennis is that he wears his emotions on his sleeve. Every time something seems to slip up or go wrong, poor Dennis is more and more downtrodden about the turn of events.
Susan, both of the actors have talked about what a challenge this show is. How do you deal with that? What made you think you could do that?
I played temporary insanity. I was literally out at the theater working on costumes, probably something like that. And there were two members of the play reading committee who were out there discussing things. And they said, oh, we have our hot list here. We really need someone to direct a comedy. And you've directed comedy before. So here's our list of comedies. Is there anything you'd be interested in proposing? And I saw the play that goes wrong on there. And I was like, oh my goodness, I would so much love to be involved in that show and to direct it. And so I first spoke with our technical director, Chris Benham, and said, I'm not even going to propose this if you don't think it's feasible, because it is so technically challenging. And he said, yeah, I think we can do it. So here we are. And I think as soon as they announced the season, Chris commented, words to the effect of, what have I done? and I told him, you have no one to blame but yourself, Chris. You had a chance to say no, and it's too late now.
Oh dear. Well, I can certainly understand why Ed has spent so much time as a production assistant. There must be so many problems with the play that goes wrong?
It's hard on actors, it's hard on costumes, it's hard on props. I mean, all of the props have understudies because we know that they will break at some point during the run, just because of how roughly everything gets treated. Even Shay's dress is going to have an understudy because of the physical comedy that she mentioned earlier. It could potentially be very damaging to a costume. So yeah, there's a lot.
Oh, wow.
I don't look at it as a problem so much as an opportunity. And I think that, something I've seen every night in rehearsal, the way the cast takes advantage of the opportunities that they have to play or to skewer the way theater goes wrong and the goes wrong moments that we've all experienced on stage. I mean, like Ken said, if you've been involved in this show for a long time, something like that's going to happen in almost every production, and it's how you are able to handle it that makes the difference. And the fact that this one goes off the rails so much makes it a ton of fun.
Speaking as an audience member, if you were not in the theater, can you still enjoy this show?
Oh, I definitely think so. Even if you maybe don't 100% get the in jokes, they're still very, very funny. The things that go wrong are quite obvious in their going wrong.
And what's so great too is that one of the best parts, again, all these kind of actors playing actors within characters, is everybody's character responds and reacts to all of these different goes wrong in accordance to their character's personality, how they would react. And I think that's part of kind of that humor in there is, some are going to be irritated about it. Some are going to be trying their best to cover it up. We've seen those moments where you're like really trying to help the other person. And, all of those kind of bits of chaos that kind of continue to swell and grow throughout the show. Say, we're just here to get this thing done. I've definitely had shows like that where there's enough craziness and insanity and then the audience and this broke and a doorknob's gone. What's happening? And so you're just like, we're just going to finish this. We just got to get through. And that, that energy through the end is just so funny that I think I hope this is a good thing that we still have to get the note, guys, you can't break on stage. It's you can't break. You can't break each other. You can't laugh at your own jokes. So that means we're still funny weeks and weeks and weeks in working with each other. We're still making each other laugh and crack up on stage, which is incredibly enjoyable.
It sounds like a lot of fun, and it sounds like a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely.
And Ken, to speak of the goes wrong moments, if something goes wrong on stage, actors can feel it. Don't you think that the audience can feel the same thing?
Well, it'll be interesting to see if things go wrong in the go wrong performance and how we deal with that, because there's something that's probably not going to work somewhere or something like that. And it'll be interesting. The audience can pick up when things are intentionally going wrong or if things have gone off the tracks a little bit during the actual performance. But I've never laughed as hard at a show. And I can say this very honestly, as I did when I saw this show. And it's not just because I'm a theater person, although, it's kind of got a waiting for Guffman-esque kind of quality to it, because you recognize after having done theater for many years, the types of people that each of these characters represents. But I think an audience is just going to, we've got a fairly short running time right now. I think it's going to go up by minutes and minutes and minutes just with the audience reaction. It's that funny of a show.
And Susan, the Goes Wrong show also involves the technical backstage crew as well. Tell us about that.
Yes, they're involved obviously in their actual technical capacity of making all of the goes wrong stuff happen. But then also in the process of going wrong, they end up on stage at several points as technicians trying to fix things or just sort of accidentally. And so they're more involved than most backstage crews are in the onstage shenanigans.
So it's a challenge for them too.
The people that we have in our crew are also actors. They have been on stage at Pentacle Theatre. And so I think they are relishing the opportunity to sort of do both at the same time.
It sounds like a really fun time, a really fun project to be involved in.
this is a good time of year, especially when, the weather starts getting kind of dismal and gloomy. And this is a good time to go out to the theater and just have a lot of fun and just laugh and not worry about anything else that might be going on.
It's The Play That Goes Wrong at Pentacle Theatre. It's written by Henry Lewis, Jonathan Sayer, and Henry Shields. It's the winner of the 2015 Laurence Olivier Award for the Best Comedy and the Tony Award on Broadway for the Best Scenic Design in a Play. It's a great show. It's directed at Pentacle Theatre by Susan Schoaps with technical direction by Chris Benham. It plays Friday, November 17th through Saturday, December 9th, with evening performances at 7:30 and Sunday matinees at 2 o'clock. You can get tickets online at pentacletheatre.org or by calling the Pentacle Theatre office at 503-485-4300. Tickets will also be available at the theater box office. For more information, pentacletheatre.org. And thank you so much, Susan Schoaps, Shay, Hasse, and Ken Hermens, for joining us here on Theater Talk.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Ed.
Up next is Tamara McGinnis, the director of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown at Corban University. Stand by for more Theater Talk. We'll be right back.
We're talking with Tamara McGinnis, who is the director of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, opening November 9th at the Somme Performing Arts Center at the Corban University. Welcome to Theater Talk, Tamara.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
This is a wonderful family musical. What attracted you to this particular play?
Well, there are quite a few reasons, actually, one of which is my husband is an absolute fan of Peanuts. And so he basically introduced me to Peanuts. I didn't really grow up with that.
Uh-huh.
And I fell in love with the whole comic strip as well and have read all of the books. And after COVID, as many theater companies know, many of us kind of lost money. So wanting to do a show that I knew would attract people and at the same time would be fun. And we had been scheduled to do a musical just when COVID hit, had to cancel it. And so this is our first musical coming back. And it's a smaller musical that I felt we could do kind of as our first step back into, hopefully, normalcy.
You've got a cast of 12 for this show, isn't that right?
We do, yes. We have all of the normal leads. And then I have added some of the background kind of characters, Peppermint Patty, Marcy, Violet, Frida, Shermy, who are not necessarily written into the musical itself. They're sort of like a chorus doing dances and singing, and they have a line or two, but it's not significant parts.
So what do you feel this play is about?
Well, that's an interesting question. I actually did quite a bit of reading what Charles Schultz felt the thing was about, as well as people's responses to it. And then my own response. And a couple things about what Schultz said was he was saying, you can grind out daily gags, but I'm not interested in simply doing gags. I'm interested in doing a strip that says something and makes some comment on the important things in life. So when my cast and I sat down and talked about what are the important things that you think these characters are talking about in life, we came up with probably about 15 different ideas of what the various characters reflect. But the thing that I'm most profoundly impacted by is the idea that Charlie Brown fears losing hope more than he fears losing face. A lot of the stuff that I read about him, people would describe him and say he's a loser who people make fun of and etc. And I disagree with that. I don't think he's a loser. He isn't just stupid who can't figure out how to make people stop making fun of him or tricking him. It's that he deliberately is choosing every day to believe that against all odds, it could be different today. So every time that the football is put up for him to kick, every time he goes to try to fly his kite, he does so with this hope that today might be the day.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's absolutely right on. I grew up with the comic strip, and that's always what I got from it, that Charlie Brown has hope. Otherwise, he would have given up on the little red-haired girl. He would never trust Lucy with the football, you know?
And it's interesting because we live in a fairly cynical society. And I have heard that phrase, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I have kind of believed that. But as I started researching for this show and started spending a lot of time with it, I began to realize, you know what? I don't really believe that because it's so cynical. And what Charlie Brown does is he offers a second, a third, a fourth chance to everyone around him, including himself. And he doesn't take personally the teasing and the sometimes even unkind things that people say and do. He gives them the benefit of the doubt. And he recognizes that tomorrow will be a new day. And this will not define my relationship with them going forward, nor will it define who I am going forward. I just love that.
Do you think audiences will take home that idea from the production?
I'm certainly going to put it in my director's notes. Of course, how many people read those? I don't know. But I have hope, and so I keep writing them.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Given the adaptation of Charles Schultz's great comic strip, how are you approaching the scenic design? Are you reflecting the comic strip purposefully, or are you bringing in different design elements? How's that? What's it going to look like on stage?
We are definitely trying to reflect the comic strip feel. And I am really trying to make this an homage, really, to not just the strip, but also to Charles Schultz and his vision of life, how he reflected that in his characters. So some of our backdrops, we have 3 kind of rectangular scenes that are going to be not necessarily the typical backdrop scenes that characters stand in front of and it puts them in a setting. These are just 3 very common background scenes that are used in the comic strips. And then the whole show is very episodic. It's just like you're watching an excerpt. You're watching the comic strip being brought to life. And then you turn a page and now you're into the next little vignette. So we are trying to be very true to the comic strip genre. It's difficult because it's a play. And usually with a play, you have a story arc and you have a plot line. This one, it's more thematically driven and it's episodic. And so we're trying to find ways to walk that very fine line between honoring the comic strip genre and still recognizing, but it is a play. And so you have to have some things that unite the show together so people move smoothly from one scene to the next scene. I was really surprised, though, that as I talked to my actors, many of them, the only exposure they really had to Peanuts was at their grandparents' house.
Oh, dear.
I know. I was really intrigued by that. And so I had to talk to them about, so why is this such a big thing? And I found some statistics that they were really impressed with. At its peak, Peanuts was read by 355 million people in 21 languages across 75 countries.
Wow.
That's pretty impactful stuff.
That's quite a legacy to live up to.
Yes, it is.
What's been the biggest challenge in bringing this show to the Corban stage?
Musicals are just challenging because you basically are doing more kinds of tasks than what you are in a traditional drama. You have singing, you have dancing added to the ability to act and having to have costumes and makeup and scenery and all that. So I would say that is a challenge. But I think the most challenging thing here is that what I was talking about earlier, that trying to bridge the gap between comic strip genre and theater. A lot of the other shows that I have watched of people who have put Charlie Brown on, I felt didn't quite understand how to do the comic strip side of it. They're very good at theater. And so you walked away just feeling like, oh, that was a show. And I don't know if I'm going to be successful, but I'm really trying hard to try to find a way to still emphasize the cartoon characteristic, I guess, of this show, and to be true to the comic strip rather than doing what you have to do to make it theatrical.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're basically talking about a flat black and white medium.
Yes, you are.
That needs to be on the stage. Do you use primary colors? Do you do everything in black and white?
Yes.
My favorite part of reading the comic strip was the big panel Sunday color comics, because that was always a longer story with a longer story arc, and it was more than just 4 or 5 squares on the paper. It was 3 rows of pictures. So
right. And I'm hoping that people will go away kind of feeling like they have watched the Sunday paper come alive. So we are planning on having color, but we are doing some just plain 2-dimensional kinds of things. And we're outlining everything in black so that it looks like it was drawn first and then colored in. And we're trying as possible to be true to the cartoon costumes and hairstyles, although Charlie Brown will not be bald, for which my actor was really grateful.
And the show is Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. It's the musical adaptation of Charles Schulz's great comic strip, Peanuts. It's at Corban University at the Salm Center. Corban University is located at 5000 Deer Park Drive, just east of the Salem city limits. It's a beautiful setting. Go see this show. The schedule is November 9th through the 19th. Matinees on Thursday, November 9th and Sunday, November 19th. But you need to know that the Thursday matinee is already sold out. So get your tickets early. You can look for tickets at the Corban University website or onstage.tickets and search for You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. You'll be able to pick up your tickets there. Tamara McGinnis, thank you so much for joining us here on Theater Talk to tell us all about Your Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy it.
Stay with us for our conversation with director Jeb Burris and actors Maddie Blanchard and Jacob Fritts from Western Oregon University's production of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. More Theater Talk is headed your way in just a moment.
We're talking with the director, Jeb Burris, about Much Ado About Nothing, opening November 9th at Western Oregon University. And he's brought 2 of the actors, Maddie Blanchard, who plays Beatrice, and Jacob Fritts, who plays Benedict. Welcome to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a favorite of Shakespeare's plays. I love it because of the banter between your characters. Can you describe what attracted you to this play? Or
This play, it's got so many great parts. It's really, I always say plays like this have something for everybody to feed on. The table is full of food. And so every actor's got something they can kind of really dig into and find fulfilling for themselves. And then the story itself is just timeless in the sense that, it's a story about people who are afraid to reveal their true selves for fear of being hurt. And if that's not a story that still holds up today and how we kind of exist in society, I don't know what is. And especially, I think it's even more poignant in a college production. They bring a lot of nuance to this story that otherwise doesn't get to be there. So that was my impetus. And we had the great actors to be able to do it. That always helps.
It's also a tale of deception, isn't it, Jeb?
Yes, it very much is, because, within that idea of people not wanting to, reveal themselves or be vulnerable, they have to kind of lean into deception. And, within that, there's other people in the play who have other ulterior motives that are not so savory, who also deceive and cause problems.
Yeah, what's always amazed me about this show is the fear of so many of the male characters of being cuckolded by their wives when they're probably the ones that are off, shall we say, gallivanting around.
Yes, yeah, this play is rife with toxic masculinity, and it's also a very contagious part of this play. I think it's a part of that deception and that villainy and that unsavoriness. And Jacob and Maddie just do such wonderful jobs at the banter that you're talking about and the language in Shakespeare that it requires. They just have so much fun doing it, and at least I have fun watching them do it.
So before we get into the character breakdowns and all, can you give us just a quick view of what your vision or concept for the show is, and what kind of choices you've had to make in bringing such a classic to the modern interpretation of Shakespeare?
We're really leaning into that idea of both the modern and the old. Like I said, this story is very timeless, yet it was written a long time ago. And so it is both a part of the old world and the new world, just like lots of issues that we may have in our personal lives or society. Things don't always get better. And so we're allowing space for, the look of this is going to look very kind of Shakespearean and that kind of thing. But there's going to be a lot of elements within it that are very modern. And that those all kind of tie into those themes I was talking about. And it also, gives the opportunity for the actors to get some good Shakespeare boots on and play around in those costumes, but also bring their modern sensibilities to it and their modern nuance to it, and find some autonomy within that Shakespeare language and story for themselves. One thing I will say is that one of the first few lines of the play, we talk about coming back from war, and in this war, no one has been killed. And we really took that as kind of like, well, what does that mean for this world? And maybe there's been a lot of wars before this, and a lot of people have been killed. And so what we found within that is that this world is actually, there aren't a lot of older adults. Leonardo is Hero's brother, not Hero's father. And so it's a town of people trying to understand how to govern a town and be authentic with themselves at the same time, and learn and grow and be in charge of people that they are contemporaries of. And how does that happen? And how do you learn how to do that on your own? So that's a big part of this production concept as well.
Maddie, how do you look at this character that you're playing, and how have you approached all the banter?
I love Beatrice. She is probably one of my favorite characters in all of Shakespeare's work, and especially like my favorite female character. She is so strong-willed and opinionated, and she has such high standards for herself in a way that I really resonate with. It's been so much fun getting to bring her to life and getting to bring so much of me to her.
How do you approach the language? Have you done Shakespeare before?
Yeah. My first play ever was actually A Midsummer Night's Dream when I was in 4th grade. And that kind of began this obsession for me. I actually did Much Ado About Nothing my freshman year of high school, and I played Ursula. So it has been so telling of my growth as an actor now that I'm a senior in college, just to be able to see how much the language has grown on me and like become a part of me. A lot of the language in this show, at least for Beatrice, is not super complex. She's very witty. So there was a lot we needed to discuss in the rehearsal room, figuring out how to make everything clear for a modern audience. But I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Well, Jacob Benedick is one of my favorite characters in all of Shakespeare's plays for a couple of reasons. One, he's probably more mature than many of the, I guess, truly romantic characters in Shakespeare's plays. And second, he has his own journey and is reevaluating his life in his middle years and looking at what he may have passed up, including Beatrice. How do you approach your role as Benedick?
Yeah, I think you got it exactly right. I love this idea that Benedick uses all this quick wit and all this humor and his bravado and his arrogance as kind of a shield for what he really wants in life. And he is so often in the show talking about how he will never fall in love, and how he will never marry. Then you see these really real moments with him where he is like talking to Beatrice, and it's just so very clear that this is something that he's wanted his entire life, and this love and this care, but he doesn't know how to verbalize that and to talk about it, and so he uses all this stuff to kind of deflect. And I just think that's really cool.
Each of them uses humor to guard their feelings, and they're both so awkward. I mean, here are two people that are in middle life, essentially, for people in that era, and they're still behaving like teenagers.
Yeah, they bicker quite a bit, much like teenagers would, especially in the first scene that we see them. They're yapping at each other for quite a while.
Well, you two, could you share a memorable moment or a scene from the play that you particularly enjoy performing?
It's very hard for me to choose my favorite scene, because every scene
your
I find something new. Yeah, it's very cliche and very cop-out. But I mean, we were working the first scene again last night, and I was finding like new things and new things to love about this scene. And I just think that's a testament to Shakespeare and his words, and how much there's in the text and in the language to go about. If I had to pick one, I would say there's a scene towards the middle of the show where Benedick and Beatrice are talking, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I think it's just a beautiful scene, and I think Maddie is phenomenal in it. So I love that scene.
Maddie?
I agree with everything Jacob said. We talked a lot about, at the beginning of the introduction, about how to make their relationship like make sense. Because it's very common at the end of Shakespeare's for everyone to just get married. And we wanted their relationship to track and be something that made sense and wasn't like them being forced together. And so I have really enjoyed working with Jacob, who is also phenomenal, and finding the nuances of their relationship and finding how they connect. I also really love the scene in the middle of the show that Jacob was talking about. I think that it is such an amazing show of growth for their relationship, because where they would previously fight like that and not come to a conclusion, in this scene, they kind of both let their guard down and really see each other. And Jacob has just been incredible to work with. In that scene specifically, like wherever I run off to, he's gonna find me and he's gonna meet me energetically, and that has been a real gift.
You guys are talking about the scene in the garden, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, post
Yes.
wedding.
Yeah.
Scene.
It's a very classic scene, and it's lovely. Jeb, back to you. The conflicts in this play fundamentally start with a big lie from the villain named Don John, who upsets the wedding plans for another couple. So there's that element. But one of the great things for me is Dogberry, and who is the sheriff, and his associates bring such a great comic turn when they report their investigation. Tell us a little bit about how you're approaching that particular moment.
Well, you're absolutely right. The watch in Dogberry in the script is just some of Shakespeare's great comedic kind of relief and the balance to this world. And we have an actor, Wyatt King, who's playing Dogberry, and he's a phenomenal comedic actor. And we actually just ran our second act the other day, and everyone got to see it, and the room was absolutely wild. It was very fun. And in this, we're really going for, you're going to see a Dogberry who's trying to put together a group of people to watch over this town, and they may or may not be the greatest at their job, and it may or may not be a reflection on the person trying to get them to do their job, but they want to be a big part of everything, and they don't always know how. And so within that is a lot of fun. And, we have a lot of 4 or so actors within that watch that just have a lot of fun, and they range from freshmen to seniors. And it's a fun group that plays around really well together.
There's a lot of fun language in that as well. The Dogberry-isms, or what people would probably call malaprops, are run rampant throughout his speeches.
Yes. Yeah. One of my favorite ones is when he's trying to kind of build up this person, saying that he should say that they're the most sensible person for the job. But he says, you being the most senseless person here.
And it's very fun when Shakespeare is actually funny. We have all witnessed plays where we just don't get it, where the audiences then would get it, but not this one. It's really out there. It's fun. It's very fun.
Yeah, you're right. It's a great point, because, a lot of that language, a lot of the comedy too within it is built into that language, and Shakespeare's audience would have reveled in every bit of it. Right. And so we have to, like you're saying, bring our modern sensibilities into that. And how do we make each other laugh now? Well, let's marry that with what the text is asking of us. And if we do that, I think anybody on the spectrum of laughter, we'll find a spot for them.
What do you hope audiences are going to take away from this production, Jeb?
I hope that they walk away from this production asking themselves, what situations can I be more authentic in? What situations am I still hiding or afraid maybe to be my purest form of myself in? And what is it that's holding me back? Because we see all these people in this play doing that, and they're holding themselves back from something that they actually need and will make their lives better. So I hope people can see that, we do hold ourselves back in a lot of ways, and we have the option to change things when we can. We don't always have that option, but when we can do it, and it's not easy, right? But we can. So I hope that people see that. That's probably the biggest thing.
And Maddie and Jacob, what do you think the couples who come to this show will be talking about in the car ride home when they're discussing Beatrice and Benedick's relationship?
I think it is so obvious from the first second that Benedick and Beatrice talk about how in love with each other they are. And I think this arc that they go through of learning to find healthier ways to express that love and to communicate and talk about this thing is a very good lesson for everyone to learn in all of their relationships. And they're just really cute together, I think. And so I think that's something everyone could like. There are a couple scenes where they just get to, be happy to be in each other's presence and to love each other. And I think it's really cute and fun.
Maddie, what do you think?
I think what I have really enjoyed finding in Beatrice and Benedick's relationship is watching how they learn how to love each other, and how they communicate what they need, because that is what brings them together in the end. Is they are both able to communicate like, hey, this is what I need from you in order for this relationship to work. And when they are truly listening to each other, they work together very, very well. And so I think that is something that I think about a lot when I'm thinking about partnerships, is like, how do I serve the other person in this relationship that I'm with? And I think that Beatrice and Benedick are a fantastic example of that when they stop trying to outsmart each other.
Well, folks, the play is Much Ado About Nothing. It plays at Western Oregon University. It's one of William Shakespeare's best, funniest, and most entertaining shows. It's a romance. It's a tragedy. It's all things rolled up into one. Performances are November 9th through the 18th. Evening shows are at 7:30 p.m. There's a matinee November 12th at 2 o'clock. There are ASL interpretive performances on November 10th at 7:30 and November 12th at 2. Check out wou.edu theater to get more information about Much Ado About Nothing. Thank you very much, Director Jeb Burris and actors Maddie Blanchard and Jacob Fritts for joining us here on Theater Talk.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time to wind up today's KMUZ Theater Talk program. Thank you for joining us. Next week at 9 a.m., you can tune in to Talking About Art with Joel Zack. KMUZ Theater Talk is a proud member of the Mid-Valley Theater Network.
KMUZ Theater Talk airs at 9 a.m. the first and third Friday of the month at 100.7 and 88.5 FM, and on your favorite radio app or on demand at kmuz.org. You can also listen to our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast anytime on your PC, mobile device, smart speaker, or in your car, wherever you get your podcasts.
Ed and I will return November 17th with a brand new KMUZ Theater Talk program. Meanwhile, check our Theater Talk Facebook page for news and updates about live theater in the Mid-Willamette Valley.
If you haven't yet joined in to support Theater Talk and the rest of KMUZ's great community radio programs, head on over to kmuz.org right now and click the Contribute button at the top of the page. And thanks. Until next time,
We'll see you in the front row.